What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to solve proportions in triangles that have parallel lines. And we can do this using something called the Side Splitter Theorem. Sounds pretty badass. All right, so as you can see here, we have a triangle and it's got two parallel lines running through it, right? This one in the middle and this one down here. And we're also given four different lengths. So 8, 10, 6, and x. So the way we can solve for x over here is by setting up a proportion. So again, a proportion is just basically a fraction equal to another fraction. So what goes in your first fraction right here? Well, it's going to be just one whole side of the triangle. So here we can say 8 over 10. 8 over 10. And that's going to be equal to the other side of the triangle. So 6 and x. 6 and x. Okay, one thing I want to point out here is I didn't put x over 6, right? Because as you can see, 8 and 6 are connected and 10 and x are connected. So that's why 8 and 6 are connected on top and 10 and x are connected on the bottom. But now this is a simple proportion that we can solve, right? We just need to cross multiply. So 8 times x is equal to 8x, and that's equal to 10 times 6, which is 60. So here we can divide both sides by 8. So then we get that x is equal to 60 divided by 8, which is 7.5. Boom, all right, there's our first answer for x. Okay, here's the next example. So again, we have our two parallel lines running through this big triangle, right? And again, we can set up a proportion. So what goes in this proportion here? Well, again, it's just going to be one of the sides. So let's just do this side first. So on this side, we have x and x plus 5. Okay, so that's going to be equal to the other side of the triangle, which in this case would be 8 over 12. And again, make sure you're lining these up in your proportion as well. Okay, so again, we can cross multiply. So our first cross, 12 times x is equal to 12x, and that's going to be equal to 8 times x plus 5, right? 8 times x plus 5. So if we simplify this, we're going to have 12x is equal to 8 times x, or 8x, and 8 times 5 is 40, so plus 40. All right, so then getting the x's on one side, we can subtract x, 8x, from both sides. 12 minus 8 is equal to 4, so here we get that 4x is equal to 40. So then here we can see that x must be equal to 10. All right, here's our answer. All right, here's the last example. So again, we have our triangle with our two parallel lines. So again, we can solve this by using a proportion. So in the first one, again, we can just put one side. Let's put this side first. So let's say 12 over 7x, all right? 12 over 7x. So in this ratio, we'll put the other one, right? So 2x plus 2 is on top. And on the bottom, we have 5x minus 1. Okay, so again, we just need to cross multiply. So first of all, we have 12 times 5x minus 1, right? 12 times 5x minus 1. And that's going to be equal to our other cross, 7x times 2x plus 2. 2x plus 2. Now if we distribute first on the left side, 12 times 5x is equal to 60x. So we get 60x, and then 12 times minus 1 is negative 12, or minus 12. And that's equal to, let's see, 7x times 2x is equal to 14x squared. 14x squared. And 7x times 2 is 14x, so plus 14x. Okay, now I'm going to move this to the side just to make some more room for our work here. And you know what? Let's bring this guy up right here. Okay, as you can see, it kind of looks like we can set up a trinomial, right? Because we have an x squared, we have a couple x terms, and then we have just a number. So let's get all the terms on one side. Let's move everything to the right side. So here, let's subtract 60x, subtract 60x, and let's add 12. Add 12, add 12. All right, so then on this side, we get a big fat 0, and that's going to be equal to 14x squared. 14 minus 60 is equal to negative 46, so minus 46x, and plus 12. Okay, now one thing we can do to make this a little bit easier is to divide all these numbers by 2. Okay, but if we divide this whole side by 2, remember whatever you do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we have to divide this side by 2, right? So here, let's divide this whole side by 2 and this whole side by 2. So over here, 0 divided by 2 is still just 0. But then here on the right side, 14 divided by 2, that's equal to 7, right? So we get 7x squared. And then negative 46 divided by 2 is negative 23, so minus 23x. And 12 divided by 2 is 6, so plus 6. Okay, so again, I'm going to make some room over here. And let's bring this guy up just so we can work with him a little bit easier. So as you can see, we have a trinomial, and now all we have to do is factor this. So there's a couple different ways. We can factor it using the AC method. We can use the quadratic formula. Here, let's just use the AC method. So to do that, I just need to multiply the first and last numbers. So 7 times 6, that's equal to 42. All right, now I need two numbers that multiply to 42, but they have to add up to negative 23, right, the middle number. So in this case, that would be negative 21 and negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to replace this middle term, the negative 23, with these two up here. So here we're going to have 0 is equal to 7x squared minus 21x minus 2x plus 6. Okay, so now I have four terms here. So one thing that I can actually do is factor by grouping. So that's just going to involve grouping the first two terms and grouping the last two terms. Okay, now we want to factor out the biggest term from both of these. So the biggest term that we can factor out from both of these terms would be a 7x, right? So here we're going to say that 0 is equal to 7x, and then in parentheses, what are we going to be left with? So if we factor out a 7x here, we're just going to be left with an x, and that's going to be minus, factoring out 7x from there is going to be 3. Okay, now in this set of parentheses, the biggest number we can factor out looks like a negative 2. Okay, so let's factor out a negative 2, and then in parentheses, we're going to be left with x minus 3 also. Okay, and that's the goal. You want to have the same factor in these parentheses. Okay, so that's why I factored out a negative 2 and not just a positive 2. Okay, so then the last thing that we're going to do here is just factor the terms we factored out. So this 7x and this minus 2. Okay, so 7x minus 2, and then our other factor, which is x minus 3. Okay, so those are our two factors. Now to solve for x, the last thing that we have to do is just set each of our factors, these two guys, equal to 0. So the first factor is 7x minus 2 is equal to 0, and the other one is x minus 3 is equal to 0, right? So let's solve this one first. So here we can, let's see, add 2 to both sides. So we get that 7x is equal to 2. So we can divide both sides by 7. So here we get that x is equal to 2 over 7, right? So there's one answer for x. Now over here, to solve for x, we could just add 3 to both sides. So we get that x is equal to positive 3, right? And there's your other answer for x. So if you found the video helpful, definitely leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any other questions or want to see any other examples, just let me know in the comment section below.